Okay, I believe you can see my screen, Abby.
Yes.
By my notes. Okay, object oriented. So where did we stop? Hmm. Okay, I think at the point I wanted to differentiate. Um, I wanted to show how what static method is all about, because we have instance kind of method, so we also have something called static method. So all these ones we've been doing so far, are instance kind of methods. So public functions, the name of the method is like an instance method. That is why, like, that's how everything's like. That's why we can do stuff like this, create different objects and all. But when we do something like static method, the approach is actually different, and it has its own little rule. Um, let's just let me just create a new file to just do something like brief brief summary of what we did before. I just say maybe some tests dot php. Okay, so let's say we have a no. I have to give the remember the name has to the name of the file for a class should be the name of the class too. So let's say class circle. The name is more Starling. So class circle. I just want to do like simple example of something now. So let me just say I have one property called radius. Then I have one method. Maybe let's say the method is to calculate the area of a circle. So calculate area. So that's what the method is doing. And it will return area of a circle is it at pi r square, I think. I don't forget this math stuff. I think it's pi r square. Area of a circle. Let me see. Cal- calculate calculate area of a circle. Pi r square. Okay, I'm correct. So we know pi is like in decimal is this number. So pi r square, that's times the square, that means 2 times of the radius. How can we do this on that? Maybe something like, well, remember to access the property inside this function, because this is actually a static kind of method and also a static variable. I mean, no, not static, rather instance. Yeah, instance method and instance variable. Just like every other things we've done here, they are all instance method and all the instance variables. So I'm just recalling the same kind of examples we've already done in the last class, but I'm using another kind of example for it. So by r square means r times r. So we need to get this radius, and to get this radius, you have to use this keyword. But now they said square, so I mean this times itself. So that would be, you can just put maybe brackets here, asterisk this radius. So that times itself. I'm trying to think if there's a like a raised to power kind of way to do this thing, like something like raised to power 2. But I don't know if it's working that way in terms of PHP. To make, instead of just me repeating this thing 2 times and saying this times this. But anyways, let's just leave it like this. So I have one circle now. So objects, circle objects. So this is an object, and the object you just have to call the class name. So since there is no parameter, I can leave it this way, or I can just still leave it this way anyhow. So if I want to know, the radius has no data, it has nothing assigned to it. I didn't come here and put a fixed number, like a default number. So we can set it outside as well if we don't want to put a fixed number directly from here. So to access it, after you've instantiated the class using the object, so we will then from here be using the object to access whatever things we want to access inside of the class. So we have here circle, then whichever thing we want to access. So I want to access the radius, and now to set it to 5. So that means the radius now is holding 5. Now it means if we try to want to calculate the area of that circle, remember to access this function, we need to still call the object, which is circle, then the name of the method. So this has called this method out, and the 5 is set, so it's going to be 3.142 times the multiplication of 5 times 5, which is 25. So that means that's what is holding. This is holding a number, a value number now, like this. I think it's 78.5. So but we can see it out by echoing out the area. If I check terminal, php circle.php, so 78.5. So anyway, so basically I've not done anything new. What I did here is everything we've talked about in the last class. So I'm just using like another example to illustrate the same stuff, so that I can then talk about the aspect of the static method, or how the approach would be different if we were to be using static method. Okay, so let's see an example of how static method could work. I think I'm looking for a simple kind of example. Okay, let's look at something. Let me erase this entire stuff. Let me name this one just as example. So I want to create a class, like an example class. Now in this class, I want to give it a variable, and just call it to be like any name. I'm just giving it a name, so variable, and I'm giving it a default value. So an instance variable. Now public function, I'm creating a method now. So let me just say what will I name it now? Let me just say some method as name of the method. Then I want to echo out that the method should just echo out that variable value for me. which is instance var. So if I come outside here, I want to create an object for the class. So as usual, an object for the class is like a variable, then you call the name of the class, which is example. So now for me to access this method, the same logic, I will call the object name, which is example, then arrow sign, some method. So this alone would output what the method is holding, and what method is holding echo, which means this will print out this sentence for us. What I'm still doing is still using instance method and instance properties, example.php. So everything, this is still an instance variable, instance method. Now let me change it to static. So for me to change this one to static now, if I say I want to change the method to static, I will come here and put static here. And so as I even put the static, this one already show me red line automatically. If I remove the static, it is fine. But when I put that static there, it show red line, which means we can't use this. You see this arrow approach? This arrow approach is like instance way of accessing stuff. So as I have used this static, that means this is no longer instance. So I can't use this word this anymore. So it has already thrown that error for us. So this in general will run an error code. So let me just change this method to I just want to change the name, because now we're talking about static. So let me just change it to something related. So static method can be any name anyways. So it will throw an error because I've declared this method to be a static method, no longer an instance method. And we don't use this keyword. This keyword, we don't use it when we are accessing stuff related to static. So now the approach we could use would be, since this is a static method, because static method only retrieves static variables. So this one is still an instance variable. So we have to make it static variable. So I will also come here and put static here behind of it. So it's no longer an instance variable, it's now a static variable. Well, I can leave the name like that, but let me just change the name just to relate to it. Saying a static variable. Let me change the sentence here too. Static variable. So now, but then the point here is that we are still using this word this, which is not proper. So whenever we have a static method and a static variable, the way we access this variable inside of the static method is we don't use the this keyword, rather we use self. We use self keyword. I think no need of this thing. Self and double quotation like this. You can see now the error has gone. So whenever you're dealing with static, we make use of self, and instead of arrow sign, we don't use arrow sign, we use this double colon 2 times. Then you can call the name of that stuff here. Also, let's see. If we want to then try to output this, if we want to output probably this stuff to see it out in a way, we can't use this approach anymore as well. So whenever I want to, just like this one is still using the instance approach. So the approach we'll use when it involves static would be like this. The class itself, we will just call the class without using this new keyword. I think then something like this, double quotation, then puts the name of the method, static method. So this is the approach this one uses. So you just write the name of the class without that new keyword. We don't use the new keyword here. Write the name of the class, use the double quotes, then state whatever you want. If not the method you want access, put the method name straight up. So it's everything is being held here in this example. So we can echo out example. So this will still give us the same solution. You can see we still print the same stuff. So these are like two ways of doing the same thing that I'm just showing you now. Two ways. But now there are cases you need to know when to use one and when not to use one. So that's the aspect now. So I have to understand the difference. I know when should I be using static variable and method, and when should I be using instance variable and method. So let me outline the static method and static variable. So use instance methods when, so number one, you can use it when, now this instance method is talking about the formal method, which is all this stuff we've been doing in the formal class. All these are instance method approach, aside from this particular example, which is the static example approach. So use this instance method when the method needs to access and manipulate instance specific data or states. When the method needs to access and manipulate instance specific data. You know, when we talk about instance method, like now this particular static method, now for this particular static method, we don't have, how would I put this, like we don't use, is it fair to say that we don't use objects? Is it fair to say that we don't use objects? Let me see. If I say, okay, next one, the behavior of the method is dependent on a specific instance and varies from object to object. You will need to make use of inheritance or polymorphism, blah 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 blah. I'm trying to look for an easier way to differentiate when to use these two. Let me see if ChatGPT can put a better, simpler statement that can be relatable. When can we use instance method and static methods in our PHP? In PHP, instance methods and static methods serve different purposes and should be used in different contexts depending on how data and behavior are modeled in your application. So breakdown. Instance properties aspects. So use them when you need to store or modify specific. Okay, that's what I wrote in the first part. But the method relies on the object states to perform its action, its function. Okay, that is this property. So the method makes use of this property. The method relies on the object states. You are working with object-oriented design principles like encapsulation and inheritance. You are modeling real-world entities. Blah 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 blah. This one says I can even bring bigger grammar. Anyway, static method. Use them when the behavior does not depend on an instance states. When the behavior does not depend on an instance states. Best practices. You want helper functions. You need global states shared across all instances. You are implementing a single thing. You are dealing with configuration. Okay, well, anyways, actually, from my experience in general, most times we happen to make use of this instance method more. But what I would just say is that probably when you want to make use of this static method, it can just be maybe can just be something, maybe something you just want to use most times inside of the class that you don't need different objects for. Let me put it that way. But you don't need something you just don't need. For example, this one now we have objects, airplane, we have helicopter, we have jets. So when you don't need different kind of objects for that class, you can just make use of static approach. Or whenever you could need some like object stuff for different purposes, so you can make use of that instance. Also, I just feel it just depends. And that thing that, well, both are still outputting the same thing. If I were you, though, if I know that this is my output that I'm aiming for, I still would prefer using the instance approach anyways than the static approach. But I'm just trying to figure out if there is one kind of main thing we can watch out for to know when it will be very, very necessary that we make use of that static approach. That's what I'm trying to check. This operation shared data only. Avoid overusing static method for everything. It breaks the stability. So, well, no wonder it's not often used like everywhere. That's why I say it's mostly the instance method approach that is used in most places. So prefer instance method unless there is a clear reason. Okay, prefer instance method unless there is a real clear reason where you won't decide to make use of that static method. Well, so I understand them pass, so I know how to really pinpoint them, sure. They confuse person. So anyways, those are like the two approaches of getting stuff done. So let's move forward. Now, going to the next part of OP, talking about access modifiers. So access modifiers are keywords used to control the visibility and accessibility of properties and method within a class. When we say access modifier, we're talking about this thing here, this public thing that we always write here. That's it. So far, now public with the rights. Okay. So public is just one example of an access modifier. So like I said, they are keywords. I don't know whether I can write them down or you can write it down when you're watching. So access modifiers are keywords used to control the visibility. When I say visibility, something they can see, and accessibility of properties and method within a class. So PHP supports three main access modifier. PHP supports three main access modifiers. So they are public, protected, and private. So we'll see an example of what each of them does. But for now, for each of the explanation, for the public own, How should I do it now? For the public, properties and method declared as public can be accessed from anywhere. Properties and method, these are properties public, these are method public. We can access the method, we can access the property anywhere. We can access it inside of the class, we can access it outside of the class. All of these things now, they are outside of the class. We are accessing it outside of the class, and as well we can also access it inside of the class when we are using that this keyword, like this example now. So you can see now we are accessing the public property inside of within the class itself, like the methods still within the class itself. So that's what public can do. So for public, properties and methods can be accessed from anywhere, both inside and outside of the class, both inside and outside of the class. So they have no restrictions on visibility and can be accessed directly using object instance or class names. So we still the same thing. They have no restrictions. Since they can be accessed anywhere, it means they have no restrictions. So none of me. So they can be accessed anywhere. Let me just put here without any restrictions. Okay, so next one, protected. Should we say protected? Let's start with private. So for private, the properties and method, even from the name private, it's supposed to get the idea of which I want to talk next. So private, for the private, the properties and methods can only, let me put that only in capital letter, can only be accessed from within the class itself. Bam. Which means if I'm using private, I can't access it outside of the class. It can only work within the class. For example, now, let me see if I change this name to private. Because here we have this name. Let me save this for points. PHP person.php. Okay, let's go and hit private okay, the it's, let's see, private method, okay, error, private method, private property. If I were to, okay, well, I can't access, I've already accessed the property internally. Okay, that's why that one worked. Okay, that is understandable. But so let's take, for example, let me use another, let me just copy this thing and I'll change the, so now I don't know. Copy this, go back. So let me use the example here. Then I want to just intentionally change some stuff. So let me say this is out of the equation. Just say this is an output. Just reduce this one a bit. Okay, so we have a new class. Let me the name. Let me just change it as example, so it's totally with the name of my file. Okay, now we have a new class. This is also public. Let me change this one back to public first. Instead of it, let me just put something else. So now on the nums now, just like what we did in the past, if I want to, because these two variable has nothing set in it. So if I want to set something there, I will need to first, I'll need to create an object. Let me just say example one is the first object. Then I will call the name of the class with the new keyword. Then example. So from the object, I can access the property. So example, then this arrow sign, then the name. So now I've set the name to something. So that's how I can do it outside without necessarily using. Remember, I intentionally didn't use constructs because you could ask to make it easier, just like I said, you could use constructs in a faster way. But I'm showing you something, I'm trying to explain something about this aspect of private so you understand what it really does. So let's do the same thing for the age. For the age. So we've declared values for the two properties like this. Now we can also access the method. And remember, we're accessing all of these things outside of the class. So if I want to access the method, I will also still use the objects. Example one, arrow sign, then the name of the method, which is output. So the method, this alone will output this echo statement for us. Because calling the method is already outputting echo, is already echoing now something. So that's what's going to come out in our terminal. No need of us checking. So now all these are fine this way. Now if we change these things now to private, watch what will happen in the VS Code. You can see now on the line don't show for this place. If I change this age now to private, on the line will show for here. You can see, because the rule here, like I said, properties can only be accessed within the class. It can't be accessed outside. That means it can't be accessed outside of the class. So you can see how it has happened in real life now. So I'm trying to make you see how no besides just the right sentence, make you understand the sentence in action, in the practical aspects. So you can see it's not accepting it on the fine properties. Shall not accepting it. So, but yeah, the sentence said, and so the properties can only be accessed from within the class. So how can I access it from within the class itself? That is where the advantage of this construct comes into play. So, but then, well, yeah, that's where the advantage comes into play. So I will need to come here now and put that construct. So we have name age. So it can only be accessed within the class itself. So that means if I want to access age, name age. Now this construct is just as if this class has two parameters. So that's why this one is showing red line. So I need to update the way I set this stuff. So name, to have a name here as Alex, and to have an age as 10. So you can see now, this is how we could set it. But we actually set it inside the class because it's actually still set inside here. Even though probably it's massive, we brought it outside of the class. But if we look at it well, this example, new example, this is the class, and these two bracket stuff, the codes are written internally. Not like this one now that the code was written like outside, which it was rejected. So this one worked fine. It took the Alex and the 10. No, this one didn't take the Alex and the 10. But this one took the Alex and the term because the approach was within the class. The function where the assignment was done, like within the class itself. That's why it was okay this way. Now this is one. Now the public function, we could still access the public function normally. Like now this one will still output normal way because this is still public. Remember, public can be accessed both outside and inside of the class. But now if I change this public to private, this one I don't show underline, you know, accept them because you can't take call private method outside of the class, but we can call it inside. When we say we can call it inside of the class, for example, let's say let me create another method now. Let me show you how to call a method inside another method. Output, I don't even know, let me just say maybe Alex, that's the name of the method. Then what should I do now, sir? Echo or let's say return. So I'm sure I want to call the method. Yeah. So I think to call a method, like this is a method, is to call it inside another method. I think we will still also need to use the this keyword. Yeah. So now this is me calling a method within another method. So this one worked because I can call, and now notice that this is public. So which means I can still access this one outside because this is public. So that means instead of me, because my goal is that I want to print this thing, but I can't print it out because this thing is private. But now I created a public function which is calling the thing that is inside the private as well. That means I can still print this output, this sentence, but I will just have to use the Alex because the Alex is public. But the Alex don't help me don't steal stuff will be private because I access the private features inside this place. So I think this should print out for me this sentence. Let's see. You can see now we still got out that sentence out, even though we didn't directly take it from the method itself. We indirectly take it from another method that was accessing that method, because this one has the public access modifier. So that's just like, so I've showed you now how to okay, so I've showed you how to the difference between the public and the private, and how to even call a public method in another method, which we are still using this keyword to to do that. So I think that's, then there's one more rule regarding this private stuff, which is private properties and method are used for should not be accessed or modified outside of class. They are not also they are not accessible from they are not accessible inside a subclass. Bam. Although this subclass now is a new concept which I'm yet to talk about at all. I've not mentioned anything about this aspect of this subclass, which is just like, when I say subclass, just like saying a child class that's inherits something from the parent class. Wait, I think I've talked about that thing. Inheritance, parent class, child class. I think we did an example, although it was a simple example during the very first month when we started that introduction to PHP during that period. But I will still talk about it now, Sha. But let's just pause. Oh, probably let me just do it now. So also they are not accessible inside a subclass. So let me explain this next sentence. Subclass. Let me make everything normal first. So you can understand the importance of even of subclass self in general. Before I talk about this, how the access modifier can do one or two things with it. Okay, public. Let me just make everything normal first. Public. Okay, now this is one class. Now let's say we want to create another class that extends this class. So probably should I use this person? Let me use this example. Okay, it's already the same thing I'm using here. Okay, it's already the same thing. Good. Okay, in that case, let me use this stuff instead. I want to use something relatable. So let's say, let me just use it. So just say, I can eat. So I'll change to eat. Probably, well, in this case, we don't necessarily need this example. So I can eat. So let me just put maybe another one. I can eat. Let me say this next one is dance. So I just say I can dance. So now this is one class. Although just imagine this, I know this is example, but just imagine it's actually like a person class. So the person has a name, the person has an age. Person can eat, person can dance. So the person can do many things. Person can read book, the person can walk, all of that. So let's say sometimes there are cases whereby you won't want your code to be unnecessarily too long. Or probably you might be working on two projects and you want some feature that is in one other class, want to import it into another class, something like that. So instead of repeating the code twice, you just need to extend or inherit from that class. So let me just give you an example now. Let me create another class under here. So I have another class, I'll call this one another person. Another person class. Another person. Now, me doing it this way, this is as if it's like a stand-alone class. In each PHP file, see this way, in each PHP file on the norms, in terms of the real practical way we do things, a PHP file should have only one class. So if you need another class, now to put on for another PHP file, you grab. So just keep that on the back of your mind. But because of we just do example, now why they do them, and now why they put these two classes for the same one file. But on the norms, it should be in different files. The reason I can't put it in different file right now is the aspect is, I think, an issue with the importing, because there's a way, something called auto loading. We can't do that yet because we have not gotten to that stage. So that's what I'm trying to avoid. So I don't want to use the normal require ones and all those shits. We don't use all those stuff like that in object-oriented programming. We use another approach when we were trying to import classes. So we don't use all those require ones anymore. So we haven't gotten to that part yet, For now, we're trying to understand the basics of how these OOP things work. So I'll just put another class here. So let's say I have another class now. So I know this is example, but assume that this is a person class. Now we are now kind of like creating another person class, which I named as another person. But now this another person, I know that this another person still has the feature of this person. Like everything, the person still fit do this one. So what's the point? There's no point of me coming here to copy and paste this one and then paste it here. It doesn't make any sense. You get, so it's like, remember, we don't need to be repeating our code in PHP at all. So once you know, say this thing don't there here, now just find a way to kind of like import in a way whereby then you can continue and do whatever stuff. So we don't just copy paste the same thing. So the approach you can do is what we call, there's a concept we call inheritance, although we'll still talk deeper into its inheritance. Even from the name inheritance, or even the way real world inheritance be, whereby if a man die, the son will take over the property or something like that. Or as a married person, if you born pikin, the pikin go inherit your character, or you go they look like you. You go inherit something that look from you, sha. So that's exactly the same concept we're looking at here. That's the same way. There's nothing different in the idea of what it sounds. So now I want to inherit everything that's in this class. So it's something actually simple. All I just need to do is just to add this few lines of code. I'll say extend. So we use this word extends. So extends, then which class do you want to extend? I want to extend the example class. So as it stands now, automatically, this another person class, which is the new class, it also holds all of these things. Even though, yeah, it look empty, but it still holds all of these things here. Let's try it and see. If I come here now and create an object for this another person, let me just say this another person. Let me say the person is baby Alex. So I want to create an object. That's the object. So I want to create the object for this class. Although it's showing me this stuff because it's expecting 2 arguments. Remember, this another person extended this example, and this example is holding 2 arguments, name and age. So I'll need to come here and put those 2 things. Name, age. Now I can do whatever I want to do now. I can access the method that is inside the other class. If I say baby Alex eats. Mind you, I am using this another person. No, I didn't use this example name. I'm using this as another class. But I'm proving it to you that upon say get all these things inside them, say the thing already collects all those things automatically, like because it already inherit them using this word extends. So this keyword extends. So extends from this example. So if we output this thing now, it will give us this I want to eat. And know that this I want to eat is in another class entirely. You can see I can eat rather, sorry. So it's giving us that I can eat. So that means indeed it is working. Indeed it has inherited this thing that is here. I can even add some extra stuff. So probably in this another person, maybe this another person gets some kind extra function. So if you do, probably the first person no fit do no, maybe person the leg don't cut, don't they disable, no sabi work. But this one another person, and this other person, the person sabi work. So that was why I just extend that one, and then I put extra new feature for this other person where this first person be no fee gets. So I can work because I'm not disabled. You get that kind of example. So now this one I don't take another fresh method, which means if I come here, this baby Alex, if I do work, so this will, remember we are still using the another person, so that's why this is the another person, and this other person, it has its own method, which is this. So this will print out I can work. If I were to change this one to example, let me comment this. This will still work because when you say example, we are talking about this class, and then you use it. The it is also inside the class, so it will still print I can eat. But if I uncomment this one and put work, you can see the error now. We don't show this underline because it has nothing like work functionality here. It can't work. It's not part of the methods in the example class. It's only part of the method in the another person class. That's why it is possible there in the another person class. So that means this another person class can do both its own personal feature and also the feature of the person it's inherited from. You get the stuff now. So now let's go back to where I am coming from now. That's why I said let me first teach you or make you understand what inheritance they're all about first, which I believe you grab this example now. So Now let's see what this sentence now is saying in terms of private modifier. Mind you, everything we've been using here is public. See, public, 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 public. So now, see something now. So also for this private now, also they are not accessible inside a subclass, like inside a child class. So that means now this one is working. I can it is working because, and the reason it's working is because it's public, and for public it can be accessible inside another class. But if I change this method to private, the private cannot be inherited. You can see underline don't show for here now. So other things feel inherit, or the public feel inherit, this other public feel inherit inside the another person class. But you see this private, private go always remain for the class where it did. Nobody carry and go another class. Like you can't use it in another class at all. So that's why it's showing this underline inside this another person class that we are using. You should get the gist now. So all these things is actually about advantage. That sometimes probably the functionality you want in the class, you want it to only be for that class, whereby no other class will steal from them or take any data or any information. You want to make it fix for one particular class. So you make use of private in that scenario. But if it's a scenario whereby you know that probably you feel you create another class and you know that okay, I need something from this other class, then probably you have to make it public so that it can be inherited. But you want something to be private for only itself, only this within this class itself. Just know that use private. So that's one stuff to think about. Also, by the way, though, you can also even overwrite a method, an extended method. What I mean by that, this is example. I extend this example, and this inside this example we have dance. So let's say I come here now and I still put dance inside there. But this dance, I change the sentence. Maybe I can dance wella. If I come here to put dance, now this last dance will come out. You know, go access this first one. Now this last one. So you don't update, like you overwrite the first one entirely. Okay, so it can overwrite some other kind of like old data in a way. So that's just one of the things I just remember that I didn't mention. So this one, what I just talked now is just about the aspect of inheritance. So understand that you can take this method and put it here and probably change maybe one unique thing just because of for this particular case scenario of this person. So probably this person sabi dance past this first person. So this one, I can dance small, but for this other person, I can dance wella. That's like their difference in a way. So I don't know if this is a lot, but I think I've tried to explain even two things at the same time. Explain inheritance and explain what this concept of this private stuff can do. Then we still have one last one. I think one of you should. So we still have one last one, which is the protected. Protected. So for protected properties and methods can you guess? I don't think you can guess. Can only be accessed from within the class and its subclass, but can't be accessed outside of the class. You see the difference for this protected feature. So now for the public now everywhere, like no security, everybody feel access them, everybody feel manipulate them anywhere, any angle, it there everywhere. Inside class or outside class or in fact even inside extended class, it there everywhere. Or private own only a class, they pass only class, they go anywhere, they like to go outside, they like to go even inside any extended anything, make it just the only the class where it dey. But now protected own be say make it dey only the class where it dey and well, you go pity the people who will extend them. No wahala, make na extend me, but make I no go outside of that class. And the difference na the protected don't be that. So the protected can accept inheritance. It can accept inheritance. This one now you can see when we did, this it is private, and private functions can't be inherited in another class. If I change this dance back to this private here, back to this it, it showed us this error because this is private. If I use protected, the error will go away. Protected function. Error never go. Whether it's VS Code, never updates. Let me close the VS Code and open it back. Sometimes things like that can happen. Let's wait to be sure that it has processed everything. So you can see no error. So okay, the error don't come back. Okay, probably let me see. Baby Alex, new person. Eat, dance, walk. It's protected. Protected can be extended now. Baby Alex, class public. Wait, let's see something. Let me show something. Why can't I access the it function? The it method. Okay, wait, let me see something. Okay, I know why. Just like what we've been saying, it can be accessed outside. We're accessing it outside. That's why it is showing this error. Yeah, we're accessing it outside. Remember the definition. For protected, properties and methods can be accessed only within the class and subclass. It can't be accessed outside of the class. The same thing with the private. Private too cannot be accessed outside. Its own is only within its class itself. Remember, the private didn't work when we changed it to private too. So the same thing with the protected. It can't be accessed outside. We're accessing it outside. We're not inside the class here, obviously. And we're not inside a subclass, obviously. But this one now, like now, see this one, this is the now. If I say, let me change this one to private. Remember I said for private can only be accessed within its class itself. So let me do as if I want to call this method inside another method. Yeah. Let me just change this one to, let me just do something else, like maybe let me just use any name. So I want to return. Remember how we did it when we call one method inside another method. When we called one method inside, go back now. Call one method inside another method. We use this keyword, that is this, the name of the method, which is like it. Something like this. So now, again, private only deals with anything where they in class. Like, they pass a boundary. They pass this place where I highlight. They go outside. They go extended. Now, yeah, it dey. But now, see me now. I can't try to bring them outside, like inside the extended class. Not even normal outside like this. But inside another class, it's still no grey. That's why they see this on this red sign. It's still no grey because they accept anything like extending. But if it were to be protected, that one will still accept them. This red sign, because that thing don't come out. So protected still dey okay. Say okay, no wahala, you can still inherit my feature, no wahala. But for private, no, you no fit inherit anything from private, even the method or even the property, you can't inherit it. But for protected, you can inherit it. But the same thing for protected and the private, both of them, they can't be accessed outside of the class. So that's why we are still getting this red line here, because this is outside of the class, and protected, you can't access, it can't be accessed outside. So that is why this is not working. But it can be extended. That's why it is extended. That's why I can call it inside here, inside another class, and inside here in this format. If I was to change this place to private, I can't call it inside an extended class. So that is like another difference. So I think there should be like a table, maybe a kind of table where relates all the summary of everything while they talk. So let's do it this way. Let me see if ChatGPT creates that table for us. Show a table differentiating the, how will I say now, the differentiating between the private, public, and let me do it in this order. Public first. The public, private, and protected access modifiers in PHP. So probably this table, if you can also write this table in your notes. So I'm intentionally did it so that in case maybe you want to do some kind of write-up summary. So now, first one, public modifier, access modifier. Accessible from same class, yes, I can access it within the class. Accessible from subclass, that's when you inherit it, yes, it can be accessed. Access outside of the class, yes. While protected, it can be accessed within the class, yes. It can be extended, like inside the child class, yes, but outside, no. Private, only inside the class. You know, they go any other place at all. You know, they go any subclass or any parent child class. You know, they go anywhere. I also know they go outside of the class. So typical use case for the public, when properties or methods should be accessible everywhere. While for the protected, when subclass, when extended class, when subclass needs access, but not external code. When I say external code, we're talking about external code like this. That is not inside any class at all. This is like an external code. While for this other private, when you want strict encapsulation, like prison, when you want to put something for prison, say, now only this class you go always there. So strict encapsulation, access only within the defined class. So I think this table summarizes everything we have been saying, all the way in English. So quick example, I shall already teach an example. So I don't know if you can look at this example on your own. Maybe later on. It's actually something interesting, Sha. Even when I was learning the difference, it was actually making sense. At least I start grabbing the difference. I don't know. Do you have any questions so far?
Ladies.
Yeah, but you go need to watch them 100 times. You replay the video 100 times, make it sink in, and also jot them down, make it sink in your brain.
Honestly, the thing they confusing.
But aside from it being confusing, like you were understanding each of the steps, like it was making sense. But now out for you to come no say you really don't know, man. If you even explain the difference from that kind of stuff, like practically, like the way I've been doing now. So that one, if it's that aspect, I understand it may take like a while. That's why you might need to just rewatch this and test it yourself, just play around different ideas. And whenever you're watching these videos like this lecture, don't just based on my own example. You say just think of something like this one now. This example is more about a person. I just do example of a car, like cars, a dog. Like try to think different abstracts so that you can get the idea of the logic of writing method, writing properties, knowing how to that kind of stuff. So that's one other advice I will just give you. So you get more familiar with this whole class. And to me, it's actually very, very simple, Sha. Although, normally it might not seem simple yet. That's how it has always been since when we started this PHP class. So, but now If I tell you, if I can't talk about all those old things what they do for PHP, if I come here, I can't tell you say, so this is an array name. We have Alex as an associative array. We have the key. Now you're like, ready automatically your brain already register them. But maybe initially you will be like, okay, this one a key, okay, na key, okay, this one a value. So that's why they usually be. So later on now, maybe in 2 weeks time or this one, you're like, okay, I understand now. This is that kind of thing. So that's how it always feels. So I can understand that feeling, sure. But I don't think we've not really done anything really technical here, honestly. That's just still one truth. But we've not even started building any projects. So we just need to understand some of all these concepts so that when we start building projects, at least it will make a lot of sense along the line. And trust me, you will eventually love it past that functional programming that you were doing. Now, this one I feel this one can't look harder than the, but funny enough, later on you will see this one make more sense and will even reduce your stress and will make you understand code structure better. Whereby even if you come back to your code in the next 2-3 years, the format alone, you go register, you go feel remember what you do than when you just write code in a scatter way, push function everywhere, put everywhere, no organization, especially in terms of your file parts. So in this one, we're going to organize the files very well in a way, sure. But for now, we are still in the introduction part, so just so that, make you no loss when I start to do project example for them. Now, there's still one more stuff, there's something little, sure. Final class, like this is a class. There's a class called final class. For example, if I come here now and use this keyword, it's a keyword, final keyword. Notice what happened. Error don't show for here. So, final, a final class cannot be extended at all. So if you know say you create class, and you know say that class, they extend them. Like you don't want to hear anything, they extend them. Nobody they steal any inheritance from them. Just sets here as final. You can see now that means this one no they work anymore. So you can't extend a class for a final class. But it doesn't mean you can't, like, if everything here is public, you can still access whatever normal accessing stuff normally, like outside, like all this kind of stuff outside. But in terms of say you want to extend them for another class, no, it's not possible. So you can't extend it. So remember this keyword final. So like final class, nothing can extend this class at all. So if you remove it, everything will be okay. Even the same thing with methods. You can do the same thing too with method, I think. I think there's like final method. But I don't see any reason why you okay, I think there's still a good reason why one can still do it for method. In case you want to overwrite a method. Just like that dance. Let's see. So this dance now, see this one can dance small. Let me come here and let me just do it above so we can easily see it. So I can do this dance. So this one can dance weller. Now this another class. Surely it is extended in the example class. Remember, I've actually removed the final, so it's possible to extend. So, and it's extending the former class, and this former class also have dance, but this one now don't overwrite the former one for this particular person class. But now I think there's a way to prevent this overwriting. Probably you don't want to make anybody overwrite this your dance so you're already there here. So if you come here and put, I think the final can be here. Final method. You can see now. Error don't show here. That means you can't overwrite a method because of this final keyword. So this is the final thing. Make nobody change them for any. Even though you want to inherit my class, no wala. But you see this particular function within inside them, nobody can change it. So you just have to put this final keyword, and then you can see I can't overwrite it anymore. Even though it is public, care. This final don't final RAM be that. So this is like another new feature again. We don't learn like this. Final keyword. So let me just add it here. What can I even write about it now? What is the final keyword in PHP, or how it is being used? Yes, I don't get lecture material now. My ChatGPT to be my lecture material. Now, my mouth had always they talk my own things with. So if they ChatGPT, they write all these notes. Most of us, if I were you, like me now, as I did this class now, as this lecturer mentioned about this final stuff, this same thing, I just come for ChatGPT. What is final keyword and all of that? Instead of just relaxing with only the statements. And this example, whereby you know go now to put them into writing. So ChatGPT will help you do them into writing. Then you can read them. Okay, prevent a child class from overwriting a method. That's talking about final method. If you put the final inside the method, that means any child class no fit overwrite, and which we've seen that now. Also, now if you put the final keyword inside the class, it means that class cannot be extended or inherited. So at least this one don't give me sentence where I feel relate with, so I feel write down as my jotting. Then it also give example where feel they relatable to the situation. So everything I'm saying with my mouth, it goes beyond what I'm saying with my mouth. Try to be writing and be taking notes, probably with ChatGPT as your example. Because I don't get lecture notes. As my have lecture note now, it will be easier. We already get books to things to jot down for board. But now they focus more on practical thing, and all my things now with my mouth at the talk. I'm not they write anything down. Just for this part that I'm just starting to write small stuff here. But most of all these things, it's even best you like check online and have more well written informations for them than just these little things that they write here. Because these little things I'm writing here now, in the real sense now, the pages in my real jotter is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 pages. 9 pages little. That's why I wrote in-depth information. So that's how you also have to be. It's not like in-depth information. That tomorrow when I come back, okay, I can even see the example. I even wrote code example. For example, now this example with ChatGPT now, this kind of code, I will just write this exact code example in my jotter too. So when I'm reading it, I will just say it directly. Okay, to make more sense to me. Then check out even like so now. So the person they read, they learn. Especially when a new concept, you have to be intentional in terms of gathering all the information and writing it down. So, but now, normally, you can say I didn't need, like, I don't need to say I won't come the reference. Because to me, they already get used to me. Like, I already get used to them. So, it's already easier. But during that early stage, this is the approach you should be taking in terms of learning new concepts. So, my mouth's gone dead dry now. I think let's go for 10 minutes break. Maybe I just drink water, relax, as I don't to talk. So, it's 11, 17, like 20, 25. Let's just say come back 11:30. So now we are moving now to like another concept now called getters and setters in PHP. We don't talk finish extensively about access modifiers. Yeah, I think. Yeah. Let me just write this one. Final key word for maths. So the next thing I want to talk about now is getters and setters. In OOP, which means object-oriented programming, in OOP, getters and setters are methods used to access and modify the values of properties of a class. Setter are used to, from the name sets, like say they set some things. Setters are used to assign new values to properties, while getters are used to retrieve the values of properties. So this concept is majorly just focusing on the properties of a class, how we can set and how we can get it. How we can set and how we can get it. On the norms, they are like we've actually been doing this already, just that we didn't make use of anything like getters and setters. For example, all these things we are doing here, like these are the properties. If we are talking about setting, say you want set values, we already they set them because we don't set the values here. You get, so we don't set the values here. If you're talking about, you want to talk about getting it, like maybe printing it out, getting out the value, we can get it out by say how to print out maybe name. If I echo this one here now, this will print out Alex for me. So that's like getting. This is without using getters and setters, like without using this new concept I'm talking about. So it's not saying this is not something we have already done. Like we can still do it without needing, like we don't need this thing for us to do this same thing. You get, but this is just me now showing you another way of, and everything we're talking about here is focused on properties, not necessarily like methods. Just that although the getters and setters they are actually in form of methods, but the focus they work on is on properties. It's not about the action, maybe I can eat, or like it's not about that. It's they're focused on properties. So let me just show you an example, shall maybe to make more sense. Let me remove this. So example. Let's say we have a person class. Let me say example class. Example class. So let's say I define different properties like private, public function. So like now, this is just a very simple straightforward example I use now. I'm just using one single property. So I want to do two things. I want to be able to get and set the name. So let me say, and yeah, whenever you are using getters and setters, setters, so assign, I used to blah 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 setters statement can make us. No, let me just write this small extra statement. Setters, also known as mutator methods. Like I said the other time, that like methods are used to assign new values to properties. So they are typically named with the prefix. So we usually use a prefix when naming it. Set followed by the property name in camel case. They are often defined as public method. Yeah, most likely they are always public. So like public access modifiers, like public method, not private, not protected. So they are usually public. So anytime you're calling that method, you are creating a set, always set it as public. So public methods to allow external code to modify the property values. Okay, so this one are like intensive write-up I don't write about the setters. Make I write similar to for the getters. Voila. For getters now, also known as, remember this one, the setters sometimes can be referred to as mutator methods. So for the getters, they are also known as accessors. So accessor methods. So they do not require arguments. Like this one doesn't need arguments. Setters, they need arguments. Remember, arguments, parameters. That's what I mean, not say that they query. Do not require arguments. But for the setters, it needs arguments. So, but for the getters, it does not need arguments, as their purpose is to retrieve the value of a property and return it. So getters provide access to the internal state of an object and do not typically need any additional this accent is too sweet parameters to perform their functionality. I'm supposed to Nigeria. Okay, so I don't write too much English. So wetin dey na mind na the koro eye make una dey see am say wetin e dey really dey about, wetin dem dey do. Now make we go see the practical. So we have quick example here. A new class called example one property, name property, which well I set the access modifier as private. And from that, things cannot be accessed within the class, right? Unless you use something public to access it outside. Anyway, so we have one property which is named, then we have one method. So now I want to get set method. So set name. No matter the rule, set when you want to create a setter, always start with this word set. It must be in camel case. This is a camel case. Camel case, small letter first, followed by capital letter for the next word. Even the way I wrote the camel case here is exactly the same way. Camel, small letter, the case, the C in capital letter. Also, they need arguments. Setters must have arguments. So I have to put something inside these brackets here. So since we are dealing with name only as a property here, I'll put the name here. Then for us to access the name, say this name equal to name. So that's how we can access the name. I'm wondering why this name is still graded out. Because I don't put name here, they expect make it come up as column. Let me see. Let me make this public. Okay. It doesn't mean now. Why? Okay, let me first leave it as private first. So this is a setter. Let's create a getter. So getter, another method, function. So getter use the get. I think I didn't write it here. Yes. For this one I said they are typically named with the get method. So let me just copy this. So I'll paste it here for the getter. They are typically named with the prefix get, followed by the blah blah blah. So this one we use get for the getter. So get name, and getters don't need forget. Why am I going to this place now? Getters do not require arguments, so we don't need anything like arguments there. So just leave them like that. Put your name. Then just need to return the property. Checking now. Okay. Now the get make the thing eventually It's not that faded out, probably because it's now being kind of like retrieved or returned in a way. So it's now feels used, but before it didn't feel as if it was used in a way. So it was graded out. Symbol name is declared but not used. But because we return it out with this getter, now normal. That means it was used as it was being returned out here. While this one we are setting, but it doesn't necessarily be like used in a way like we have not set anything for it. Okay, so let's see how it works. So if I come outside of this, mind you, this is public, so that means I can still access it outside. So if I come here and say, okay, so this is person object, so new example like this. So I've created one object. So I want to set, remember this name, remember there are actually several ways we could set a name. I can come here and put the name directly here as Alex as one. Or I can come here and do that same thing that we did there, whereby I'll come here, I will say name Alex. I don't set them like this in a way. Okay, showing that underline because, well, obviously this is private. I have to change it to public for it to work. But you get the gist, like you can see, it is working here. But now, as it is private, you can't use that. You can't use this approach itself because it won't work. So this is one of the way you can use setters because it will work using setters, whereby you can still set it even though it's kind of like private in a way. So now the approach, and also remember the other approach of setting properties by using the construct method. Using this construct method, whereby you can assign the value to it. So when you call the class, you can just set it directly like this, directly inside the class. So those are like the three different ways. Now I'm now adding an extra new way, which is using a setter like this. So now for me to use the setter, what I will just need to do is actually simple. I will just call the object, which is the person, and I'll just call this function, this set name function. So set name chicken now. So I just call the set name and I give it a parameter for the arguments. So that means now it's now holding Alex. That means this name now is actually holding Alex. Now the getting is just like printing out, outputting. So let's see the output because that means I'm expecting the output of this return to be Alex. So if I say so person, so for me to access the getter, I'll just need to call the get method as well. So get name, echo it out. I'm echoing out the get name. So let's see if it will print out my name. PHP example.php Alex. So that's just the like basic thing. And from in general, in terms of the industrial use or my experience in terms of usage, most times in Laravel, let me be specific, in Laravel, we have never made use. It's not saying it's not possible, it's possible, but it's just unnecessary or uncalled for to make use of these setters and getters because most times we just make use of these kind of constructs. We use this approach normally most times, especially in Laravel. But I noticed that in Symfony, Symfony is another framework of PHP aside Laravel. In Symfony, we often make use of these getters and setters there. So that's why this concept is not a waste of knowledge. So you get why they teach you all these things. So we have to, and I know those two frameworks, I know Symfony and I know Laravel, although I know Laravel way more because I've built more projects with Laravel. In Jakarta Academy, we did Symfony. Laravel, I learned it myself. I see the difference. So in Jagat, it was Symfony framework they taught us, and we did a project with it. But Laravel, we just had to learn Laravel because it is more popular than Symfony, like more popular in terms of use. People are using it. They use Laravel most times, so I can't just be left behind. I have to follow the crowd too, and also learn it
myself for my own personal growth. But regardless of that, the symphony knowledge is also a very, very good thing to have. At least sometimes if I see symphony job, I would smile. At least na something I feel I apply for. I realize say most Nigerians especially, like most people wey dey say maybe they be PHP developer for Nigeria, but ask them which framework they know. Everybody will just Laravel, Laravel, Laravel. It's hard for me to hear anybody mention symphony. And I don't blame them because even the resources of symphony is rare to find online. Like there are tutorials, sha, but you can't compare the tutorials as much as the way you compare Laravel tutorials. Laravel dey everywhere in terms of tutorial. The symphony dey more reserved in a way. But the frameworks make sense, sha, and I was happy to really learn the whole stuff. So it's still a good framework regardless. So that's where I noticed that I found out that they make use of these things, these getters and setters most times. So that's why I noticed it. So that's I say it's not a waste of knowledge me teaching it to you in case in the future or anytime maybe you see person like this kind of thing, make you understand say it makes sense to you, so no be something new. And although it's not safe, even if you don't use this set and get, like if I just come here now and put maybe Alex, come here and put Vin, like or whatever, it will still work. Oh, like I need to also, surely I need to change this functions name too. It will still work. But the reason of that learning is so that make person just easily know say na getter and setter, like just from the naming alone, like starting it with this name will make a developer quickly understand your code. You get, so that's just the thing to make the developer quickly understand your code. So it's not as if it can't work if you don't start the prefix with set or if you don't start it with get, it will still work. Okay, so one more advantage of using getters and setters is one more advantage which I feel well is a legit advantage anyways. You can make a property read only by deleting the setter or write only by deleting the getter. So this is like a good advantage. This sentence alone is like this one now can make sense. Okay, this is something I can consider. So to me, I would just say this is the only reason you should consider using it, even if you want to use it in Laravel or you want to use it in normal PHP code. If your reason align with this one, then it's fine for you to use it. Like that's my own personal belief, sha. Correct, follow spelling wise spell here. So that's my own personal way I see it. So unless my thoughts align with this, so let me explain what that statement is. So the first statement, you can make a property read only, whereby the person nobody should be able to change anything. You are forcing it whereby you don't probably let's say you have something like a fixed information for here, like Alex, and you don't want to make anything change them. So one is just say make nobody feel access Sam. So even though I have construct join, yes, I have this construct. Sure, let me make it simple. Let me leave it this way. So I want, let's say I have set something fixed for this thing now, which is Alex, and I don't want anything to overwrite or modify or or whatever. In short, let me use this thing. Just think of one other kind of example I can use to relate. It's better. So we have name. Let me just add age. Public age like this. Where is this one? Where is this one? So on the norms now, if I were probably let me just public, let me just make it public. So on the norms now, I can just come here and like put two arguments here, like game Vincent, and probably set this one as 20. So now I already overwrite this name. already by doing it in this way. So instead, we could, if I remove this part, this name here, and leave here as age alone, we can say, okay, now only age we will need to put for this place, which is the 20, and the Alex make it just be like that. So that means if you just want to read out whatever stuff easily, come back say I can make this thing complicated, sha. If you want to read out this thing easily without modifying it later on in any way, probably just remove all of these things back. So move all of these things back. How was this example like? Think like this. So if you want to make this thing read only, it's just very simple. You just have to get it. Like once you don't set them like this, that means there won't be a setter anymore. It will just be like this, which means you're only getting. So I'm only getting the name. Like that's the only thing any external person can do to this thing. So I'm only getting it. There's nothing like setter here. I'm not setting anything here. So I'm only getting, so just like reading only. So I'm only reading out whatever that is installed, which is Alex inside there. I can't change it out from outside there. I can't change it from outside here to something else. It will always just be me reading it only. Because we don't even have setter. That's why we deleted the setter. See the sentence. You can make a property read only by deleting the setter. So we don't have any setter. So I'm letting you know that you can have only a getter and at sometimes you can have only a setter, or you can have both. So it's not as if it's composite that it must always have both. It depends on what you are doing. So the same thing goes with the getter aspect. If you probably you want only the ability to only set something, and whereby you don't want person to read it out, but you are giving them the chance to modify it. That's when then you can delete the getter, whereby you don't want them to see it as an output, but you want them to be able to change it internally. Then you can just use this the setter, which is the set name, then change it to maybe something else. So if this is being sent now, we overwrite that Alex that is inside here. So that's just simply what that sentence is trying to say. I think let's stop today. Let's stop here today. Instead of adding more stories in play. We've done a lot already with your explanation. So I don't know, any questions so far? Okay, so see you again tomorrow. Same time by then. Take care.